Okay, let's see here. Pull it up on the secondary. Everything looks good. There it is. All right, am I broadcasting? Yep, okay, I am broadcasting. Okay, let's see. We got awesome. Glad to see it, Chris. How you doing today? I don't like this setup as much. Doing all right, thank you. Just kind of hanging out, pretty mellow day today, which is just the way I like it, of course. It's all right, just monkeying with my setup a little bit. Not sure which screen I like having the camera on more. It's like one of those things where it's like I want to see what's on my screen, but at the same time I just want to have some eye contact when I'm chatting with you all. Regardless, let's go ahead here and dive in. So before I get into what I'm talking about today, which is just kind of the next 3 weeks, my own programming, do we have any questions from the chat? Anything you guys want me to talk about? Some programming principles, etc., etc.? Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and just dive right in then. Finished up the first 3-week wave of my training. Things went really well. We got a PR in the seated behind the neck axle press. I got 140 for a triple, which is my old 1 rep max on that, so really happy with that. And then on the axle block pull, my top set was 475 for 5. I didn't have a reference on that lift leading into this training cycle, but my best block pull is 495 for 5 on a regular bar. So to have only a 20-pound lag between my axle and my regular bar is a good tell that strength is increasing, right? I might have been able to do the 495 for 5 on the axle that day, but 475 was the number I had in mind, so we're going to take that as a W. Hey, Logan, welcome to the chat. Good you could make it, buddy. So Chris Logan's actually one of my online guys we work on again, off again. He's a personal trainer himself. He's also studying to be a massage therapist. Really cool dude. So just, good that you can make it, Logan. Also, secret fact here, Logan is actually Craven the Hunter. Craven the Hunter was actually based off of Logan. I'm not sure how it works. You'd have to ask him. Either way, if you look at the picture I have on my IG of Logan and Craven next to each other, it's the same picture. Pretty fun. Yeah. First wave went really well. At the end of it, too, I took an ill-advised 1 rep max on my high bar back squat. It was kind of one of those days, just mentally, I was like, you know what? I just need to see where this lift is at, because I have not trained consistently the high bar back squat in years. And I was at 405, which, it's not a great amount of weight, but it's within 90% of my all-time best high bar, which is 455. So I'm going to take that as a win. And I think, by probably summer, I should be hitting all-time PRs on the axle high bar squat, if not sooner. I just use the axle over a barbell because it's more comfortable, to be honest. Feels better on my neck. I don't think there's really any big advantages to it, nor do I think there's any big drawbacks. I just like it for comfort. So yeah, first wave went really well, but when I reflect back on the training, one of the big things I need to change is reducing it down to 3 days a week. I'm just finding I don't have the headspace for 4 days a week. I just don't feel like lifting 4 days a week. I want to lose some weight, cut a little bit of the conjugate gut, if you will. So I want to emphasize my cardiovascular conditioning a bit. So, I talked about it on my IG, but I'm going to move down to 3 days a week, and that's what this is over here. Is we're going to go an upper max effort day, a lower max effort day, and then full body developmental effort day, rather than having 2 developmental days. And then on either side of the developmental day will be a cardio day. I could also go Monday, Wednesday, Friday with conditioning on Tuesdays and Thursdays. What's nice about this split is I can play with it and move stuff around. I have a lot more flexibility with my Monday to Friday timeline. I just find in general, I don't like lifting that much on Fridays, if I'm going to be candid. I'm rarely, if ever, in the zone on Fridays. Usually it's more of a, all right, get through the day, and then I want to go home and just be home and relax and unwind. So I do think by having Friday be a cardio conditioning day, that's going to be more conducive to that. And then also there's that mental game of, all right, Mark, you're only lifting 3 days a week. Take those Thursday sessions serious. They're full body. They're going to be tough. So let's look at what those 3 days a week are going to look like now. So Monday is going to be an upper max effort workout. And in this wave, instead of the seated behind the neck axle overhead press, my max effort lift is going to be a seated neutral grip overhead press with no back support. Some people call that a Z press. Back in my day, men bench press standing up, and a Z press was done with your feet seated on the floor out in front of you. Zydrunas himself has said he never suggested that movement. So that, I guess technically that's an L-sit floor press, whereas he has suggested the seated no back support overhead press in the Smith machine. That was the true Z press. So whatever you want to say. All right, do I find that increasing my squat 1 RM translates to improvements in other lifts? No, I don't, to be honest. I don't get that much carryover from my squat to other movements. And I think a big part of the reason why I don't get much carryover is historically I squatted low bar, and I don't think low bar helps that much with other movements. And also, at the time of my life that I was squatting low bar, I pulled sumo. So, even less transference there. I would hazard to guess that at this point in time, by switching over to high bar, I probably will get a lot more transference to my other movements. The one squat that I have found has carried over quite a bit for me historically has been my Zercher squat, oddly enough. And the reason why is if you look at the position of the Zercher squat, it's usually a slightly narrower stance. You have a rounded upper back and a rigid midline. Zercher movements in general, I think, are extremely underrated for strongman and strongman adjacent sorts because they teach you leg drive with a rounded upper back and rigid midline, which that carries over to the conventional deadlifts. That helps with your picking and loading. That can help with front carries. So big fan of the Zercher squat. Missy Elliott said it best, is it worth it? Let me Zerch it. So love the Zercher. And I do think by squatting high bar, I'll actually get a lot more transference to my movements in general, especially by improving my leg strength. Because if I look at where I'm at with my deadlift skill is very high. Most any deadlift variation, I'm strong at it, even if I haven't trained at it consistently, just because I know how to deadlift. But accessory movements for the same weak link, I'm very weak on, right? I'm not strong on rows. I'm not strong on good mornings. I'm not strong on squats. However, I'm strong on deficit deads. I'm relatively strong on elevated deads. I'm strong on pause deads. I'm strong on snatch grip deads. So for example, the row, that's great for upper back strength for transference to the deadlift, but so is the snatch grip deadlift. However, the snatch grip deadlift versus my floor deadlift, there's not much of a gap there. I can snatch grip deficit deadlift 545. I'd wager off the floor, give me 4 weeks, I could probably get you a 6-plate snatch grip deadlift from the floor. So my upper back skill, my ability to exploit my upper back in the deadlift is very good. However, the upper back itself, when I do a row, is not particularly strong. So what I need to do now is get stronger in non-deadlifting patterns to strengthen those muscle groups, so then my high skill element allows me to get more out of them and exploit them to a very high degree. Does that all make sense? I'll let this catch up before I keep going. Perfect, cool. So let's see here. I'll switch that over to live chat rather than top messages. Cool. All right, so where was I? Oh, yeah. So I also just want to improve my high bar back squat just because it's a good movement in general, right? And, can't be skipping leg day. All right, so then as far as the days, right? First movement, it's going to be the seated neutral grip overhead press, the lift formerly known as Z press. And I'm doing this with the Elite FTS American press bar, so it's got that wide chamber on it, as opposed to my T-grip bar where I can keep it in really close. And I want that specifically because by doing it that way with my feet out in front of me, with that thick bar, it emulates the log position, and it forces me to get strong with a lot of thoracic extension and hip flexion. So that's going to improve my log rack position so my elbows aren't dropping as much. So that just has a lot of valuable transference there. And I'm loving these seated unsupported presses for keeping my low back from getting fatigued. You know, if I were doing standing presses, I'd never do a standing press the day before I deadlift just because, again, I get a lot of low back fatigue from it. So this allows me to improve that thoracic extension without making inroads against my low back, which will make me a better all-around overhead presser with time. So I'm strengthening my position as well as raw pressing power concurrently, or conjugately, you could say. And then after that, I'm going to move into a neutral grip floor press versus chains. This is just pure tricep overload, and I don't want to have to grab a different bar. I'm lazy and industrious at the same time, so we'll do that. Then a rolling tricep extension, so that's just, dumbbells, right, roll into the extension. Good movement there. Then after that, I'll have done, 3 pressing adjacent movements. I'm ditching the elbow sleeves. I'll go into some pull-ups, face pulls, and loo raises. And for my calisthenics, this training wave, I'm probably going to be doing a lot of density work, just 10 minutes, however many sets. I like density, especially for calisthenics, just because it can be very hard to increase weight or reps week in, week out. But by using a density protocol, it gives me some other means and methods to chase progression. So that's what the upper max effort day is going to look like. And something that I'm doing a little differently with it is rather than do working up to a given rep max, I'm going to be doing wave loading. So wave loading is a really fun way to train. I use it very on and off, mainly off to be honest. It's not my favorite, but it's really fun. And for me right now, if I think about what I'm doing with pressing, I need more volume. So I think the wave loading slots in really nicely here. So for example, in week 1, how that's going to work is I'll do a set of 6 at 60%, give or take, 4 at 70%, and then 2 at 80%. And then I'll add weight, and then I'll repeat the 6-4-2 series, and I'm just going to keep going until I either miss a rep or I go, okay, enough is enough. Because if I think about it, if I were to do 3 6-4-2 waves, that's 36 reps at or above 60% of 1 rep max. So it's a good bit of volume, and if I did those 3 waves, I'm getting 6 or more reps at 80% or greater of my estimated 1 rep max. So then I am getting some higher intensity, high threshold work. And then in week 2, it's 5-3-1 waves starting at 70, 80, and 90%. And then in week 3, we're doing 3-2-1 waves at 75, 85, and 95%. So there's a little periodization within the 3-week cycle. We start higher reps, just kind of building the competence and confidence. I need to get a little more touches with that variation. And then I build up from there. I didn't feel like doing something like 8 rep maxes with this just because I think I'm not going to have an easy time holding that thoracic extension through all these reps with that wider bar. So it's a matter of that balancing act, right? It's like the same reason you don't do sets of 8 on front squats generally. You can't maintain your upper back position, so then it inhibits your leg development. So this is a good balancing act for me between the two. Gets me a bit more volume, and I think it'll just be really fun. Again, I do like wave loading, and I think with a pressing variation such as this, I'll be able to reap a lot of reward from it. And then as far as the floor press versus chains goings, I'm just going to use one of those 2RD approaches. I posted a video on that on this channel where, you pick whatever rep, let's say 6 reps, I do a set of 6, then at the same weight, I'm going to rep out, trying to get 8 or more, that way I can go heavier next time. Then I'll drop the load by 10, 20% and do another set for max safe reps. This is just, triceps, 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 and some more triceps. I love floor press for the strongman athlete because it does spare the shoulders, keeps your pecs from getting too tight and inhibiting your overhead position, which can be very valuable. It's also why when I do train a 4-day split, dips come after my push press, either in the session or in the training week, because if I do dips before my push press, it tends to mess up my overhead position because I get a lot of pec out of my dips. So there you go. All right, lower max effort. We are moving to the barbell block pull. So not a big change here. The blocks will be about an inch lower, so I'll have a little more range of motion. Yeah, more range of motion. Plus I'll be pulling on a barbell rather than the axle, so I'll have a little flex, but not much. This just gets me a little closer to the ground. Using this to, again, continue to address my weak link in the deadlift, which is not breaking the floor, but it is kind of the mid-range and floor speed. Strengthening my low back. This is all around a great variation. Not too much to say there. And then how that's going to work is, in week 1, I'm going to build to a 5 rep max, week 2, a 4 rep max, and week 3, a 2 rep max. I'm not doing any 1 rep maxes right now. And then I have listed here my starting weights, The week that I'm hitting a 5 RM, I'm going to start at 350 and just keep adding weight from there. 4 RM week, we're starting at 415 and just adding weight there. And then in week 3, we're starting at 475 for my 2 RM. And again, my best block pull on a stiff bar is 495 for 5. I anticipate that I'll be hitting some PRs here. I don't think they're going to be massive PRs, which is totally fine. Mentally, I'm not really looking to set, 30, 40, 50 pound PRs because that's really not the goal right now. I'm in a more foundational phase. This is base building through the end of the year. I just kind of told myself I want to put myself, a slight governor, a slight limiter on my ability to strain super heavy. Just because right now I'm busy mentally, I'm not in the headspace to be trying to go all out, balls to the wall every single session. Life stress is a little higher. I've got some outside of work duties I need to attend to. There's just things like that, and training doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? So I want to find that good, balanced mindset and approach with all of my thing here. Yeah, all right. So then, full body developmental day. The squats, high bar squats, now that I have a 1RM, I can actually set some percentages. I'm just going to use a very basic developmental approach here. 1 week I might do like 4 sets of 4. The other week might be 5 sets of 3. Then I might do 8 doubles, rinse and repeat. Nothing too fancy. I'm still kind of playing with that. It's going to be not quite a speed-focused wave, but it's not going to be a control-focused wave either, just a little bit in the middle. I'll probably wind up doing something similar to what I had done in the previous wave, which was, I set a given amount of reps and I just need to get them in under a certain amount of time. So for example, it could be I need to get 8 sets of 3 at 60% in under 12 minutes. I'm just throwing numbers out there. With the squat right now, I'm not really redlining it. I'm just getting the reps in, getting some practice in. The fact that I'm still at 90% of my all-time best after, several years away from focusing on it, I'm happy with that. I think that's great. So just get the work in. And also, I don't want to do so much squatting that I cook myself leading into the axle push press, because that's my other big thing is training the axle push press. That's going to help improve my leg drive mechanics. So that will help my log press down the road. Learning leg drive and then going to a log so you can learn the log rack position and push press is a good way of going about it. And the density method sounds like the Hepburn method with a time constraint. Yeah. It's one of those things where if you take any training method, trace its lineage back far enough, odds are good it was a reverse engineering of some other method. Actually, even that 2RD method that I posted up last week, that was a permutation of a Chris Bumstead inspired max effort wave that I used. And even if I go back in my training diaries from 2 years ago, I had one that I called the 518 approach, which was a permutation of some information I got from Paul Carter with a fatigue single, which I'm sure he got from somebody else. We flip a coin and see whether or not he admits that he got that from someone else. It changes every day. But it's one of those things where you wind up reverse engineering similar methods, right? It's like, dog crap versus rest pause versus muscle rounds versus myo reps versus clusters. They're all kind of similar to a point with minor modifications done to tailor them to the needs and desired outcomes of whoever's training them. You could also say the same with what is escalating density training by Charles Staley. There's just so many different means and methods, and they're all more similar than they are different if you trace their lineage enough. That would be a really fun thing to do sometime. God, I don't even know how you do that, but create a family tree of training progression methods where it's like we have rest pause, and then we have dog crap, then we have Steve Shaw's bulldozers, then we have Scott Mendelson. I think it's Scott Mendelson's muscle rounds. Let's see here. Carl Gosch used to say, I didn't invent any new missions, I just rediscovered them. God, that is so true. That's just it. It's constant reverse engineering of other things and then tuning and tailoring it to adapt to the individual. And this would be an interesting thought exercise. It really would. I think that would be fun to try and create a family tree of training methods, because even rest pause, right? So rest pause has its children. I think you could argue that rest pause is a child of cluster training, right? So then we have cluster training right here. But then if we branch off from cluster training, we might have Christian Thibaudeau's giant clusters. Then we have another cluster over here, which would be escalating density training by Charles Staley, right? So it gets really wild to think about, and it would get very hard after a certain point. You could probably get the more recent branches, but I think once you get past 40 years, the stuff's going to get very esoteric and we don't know where it comes from. So that's when the family tree gets very muddled and becomes more like a tangled bramble patch. But that's fun to think about. I'm going to be thinking about that later today, actually. Anyway, so squats, yeah. Use just some sort of basic means and methods there, nothing too fancy. The push press, Christian Thibodeau, absolutely. Fun fact, I actually have his neurotyping certification. I did it when it first came out. Learned a lot. The newer stuff's pretty wild. Even the stuff that I learned was pretty wild, but it was good to get continuing education. Yeah. Then axle push press. I'm probably going to use a density approach here with fatigue singles. I like fatigue singles a lot for movements that have a higher technical skill set, because if you can refine technique under fatigue and get that, I think it's called Wu Wei, which is that unconscious mastery, the flow state, being ultra instinct as opposed to Super Saiyan Berserker, you get a lot of benefit out of them because it's technical mastery under states of fatigue without the cerebral load. Then some dips and chins. Nothing too fancy there with the dips. I'll probably be using a 2RD approach again. I'm just really loving that progression. It's fun. It's simple. You know, I can kind of just go grug mode and work really hard. And at day's end, that's what a good progression scheme allows you to do, is switch your brain off, work brutally hard, and get progress in and out, right? It's not that complicated. Chins, I'll probably use density again just because, you know, simplify my life. Then some biceps and triceps because, well, I need some bigger arms. And I'm realizing I didn't finish talking about lower max effort. That's what happens when I go on these tangents. But hey, I love your questions because it makes it more fun for me. But yeah, so the block pulls, right? Talked about those. 1.5 deads rather than speed deads. I'm finding that the speed deads where you set up a band and everything, I don't like them. I don't think they're actually doing anything for me because I'm great at breaking the floor. I'm not sold on them. Whereas the 1.5 dead where you go to your knee, back down, and then all the way up, to me, that not only improves my floor speed, but that also improves my mid-range. And again, I'm just finding it's a nuisance setting up the bands. It messes with my starting position because I got to stand on them because I don't have a proper platform. I know there's a lot of people who love banded deads. They swear by them. I'm more of a swear at them kind of guy. It's an equipment constraint maybe, but hey, you know what? If some West Side guys want to get mad at me, they can. I'm the CEO of Conjugate. Those guys are maybe the mailroom clerks at best of Conjugate, so I'm allowed to make my adjustments, right? Then after that, Zercher split squats because Zerchers rule. Again, Missy Elliott. We love Missy Elliott in this house. And I just find it's my favorite split squat variation because it's very simple to set up. I can get a lot of work in, good movement. Then I'll do a chest-supported row of some sort, 2RD approach. Back extensions, and for the core work, I'll probably just set a timer for 10 minutes, knock out some ab wheels, side bends, and leg raises. I'm just spamming volume there. I'm not really thinking about it too much. I get plenty of bracing work for my compound movements, so then I just want to get some flexion and oblique work, because a strong core is never a bad idea. Fred Hatfield can't shoot a cannon from a canoe, after all. So that kind of outlines the next 3 weeks of training. And then, you know, for the next 3 weeks, the movements change again. But the same principles are going to be in place. I'm liking the upper, lower, and full body training week. I love the idea of getting 2 cardiovascular conditioning days in. And especially for me, if I look at how my gym is set up, I've got great cardio pieces. I want to use them more. And just doing a little more cardio sounds really appealing to me at this point in time. So mentally, across the board, love it. Sounds fun. And, you know, that full body dynamic effort day, that's going to be a pretty, you know, it's going to be a lot of work, but I think that's a great thing. And even as I look at this, you know, if I wanted to on the upper body max effort day, you know, I got 6 exercises here, but I could easily squeeze in a bicep exercise at the end. Normally I don't go above 6, but if it's arm isolation, you can almost count it as half an exercise just because it's not very draining to, you know, all right, Mark, go hop on the cable stack and work up to a heavy 20 on cable curls and then repeat that weight for 2 more sets of 12 to 15. That takes, what, 8 minutes tops? And that would help me just build bigger bicepticons. And then, you know, but the way I row, especially with my technique, I don't get a lot of bicep recruitment from my rows, so it's not really going to impede me on the lower max effort day, especially since I pull hook grip. I'm not worried about my bicep tendon health with a mixed grip deadlift going into it. But yeah, I think that kind of summarizes the next 3 weeks and what I am looking at. What do we think, chat? Any questions? Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun training program to run. I'm looking forward to it. And I think that's just it right now with where I'm at in life, everything going on. The fact that I can just train, have fun, and continue to squeeze out PRs here and there makes me really happy. I'm very thankful for that. And that's kind of the big thing for me with, this is me talking as a human being, not just, hey guys, it's Coach Mark here, the CEO of Conjugate. But just being grateful, I'm thankful for you guys taking time out of your Sundays even to come hang out with me and watch me talk at my computer. And yeah, Logan, I'm sure you do love density work. We've used it a lot with you, sir. Logan was probably one of my first, shall we say, alpha testers. We don't do beta testing here. It's more of an alpha dry run, raging high test alpha males, right? All that good stuff. We did a lot of density work with Logan, and it paid off really nicely. And I think it's just a good, simplistic approach. And really, if we look at the seasons, right? This time of year, most of us are a little less active. We're eating a bit more. We have more cognitive load due to everything going on. Density training really works nicely. It pairs nicely with this time of year. Because we have those extra calories, we can work a little faster. We can work a little more intelligently. So density helps us with the extra calories there. But because we have cognitive load, because we're stressed about holidays, family, or whatever we have going on, density we don't have to think about as much. It's just, all right, the timer's going, knockout, however many sets you want to get done, bada bing, bada boom, it works. So, life has seasons, just like the weather does, and just like I think our training could have a seasonality. I can tell I'm tired because I thought you said coffee, not cognitive load. Oh, yeah, I hear you, brother. Density work makes you dense. It's true. And you know what, Logan? That's absolutely true. It is science. Empiricism, which is the reliance on experience and observational patterns, is a school of scientific thought. So there you go. And, as the CEO of Conjugate, I'm allowed to say that, right? Yeah, so density works really nicely in that regard. And again, it's a season of gratitude and just being thankful that I don't have to stress so much about my workouts and still can squeeze out the PRs, have fun with it, get to hang out with you guys, talk to my computer and all my fun friends who live inside my computer and my phone. Yeah, that's just it. There's really not much more I have to go over today. I just thought this would be a fun little chat, kind of go over it. But what do you say, chat? Do you have any other questions for me? Okay, Logan's got a question. Let's hear it. Louis push-ups. Okay, so Louis push-ups are awesome for really hitting the triceps, as well as the upper chest, because you have that slight rotation. My understanding of the Louis push-up, let's just get that out of the way, is it's kind of a bastardized version of a push-up and skull crusher. Actually, let me just go ahead and do this. I'll pull it up on my screen here. Louis push-ups. There we go. All right, hopefully I don't get any copyright strikes for doing this. If I do, it is what it is. Do 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 do. See, to me that just looks like a decline push-up. Yeah, so the way this guy's doing them, to me that's just a decline push-up. Normally when I've seen it done is they do the push-up and there's a little bit of an elbow rotation, so it's almost like a bodyweight JM press. But if we're just talking about, a push-up like that, there's not too much to say about that. Just program it any way that you'd like. Yeah. Now, an interesting cue there is spreading the bar as you press up. I'll be honest, I actually don't like that cue. I think that cue is a, how shall I put this? Remnant from geared pressing. Because with geared pressing, right, the shirt is forcing you into a tuck, so you want to push against that. Whereas I think for the raw lifter, I actually don't love the cue of spreading the bar apart. I would sooner think that what you want to do is actually think that you're pushing the elbows down concurrently through the chest line there to get more pec activation. Especially for the raw lifter, getting more pecs is going to be really beneficial long term. Whereas loads above 80% tend to have a lot more pec activation versus sub 80%, which is why, it's so important to work not just your upper back, but also the triceps and everything else. So as far as programming them goes, I would say it'd be a good warm-up on a bench press day. 3 rounds of 12 to 15, superset that with some behind the neck lat pull downs and banded tricep press downs. That'd be a really good one. That'd help prime your front delts and pecs to stabilize in the bench press. Otherwise, I think a really fun one was you could do a partial ladder where you would do 1 rep and then 1 bottom half rep, 2 reps and then 2 bottom half reps, 3 reps and then 3 bottom half reps, and so on and so forth until you wind up slamming your sternum into the bar because your chest and triceps give out. I think that'd actually be a really fun finisher. So yeah, just do a partial rep ladder like that. 1 rep, 1 partial, 2 reps, 2 partials, etc., etc., etc. That'd be really fun. Do it as part of a density pairing with maybe body weight inverted rows or even chin up, depending on how adept you are. That's another way you could go about it. As far as benefits go, it's obviously going to help you learn to press with a neutral pelvis angle. I actually think that'd be really good for a lot of strongman athletes because you're pressing out of thoracic and, out of the massive lumbar extension. So that would help just reduce low back fatigue, restore a more neutral hip angle. So that'd be good for the strongman athlete. I think if you are someone who bench presses with a massive arch, that would just help kind of correct that a little bit, reduce some of the low back strain and fatigue. Yeah, I knew the second I said partial ladders, Logan, you would be in on it. It seems very much up your alley. Oh yeah, right? That will be nice and brutal. That is going to burn. That's going to get one hell of a pump. But yeah, so just a good all-around movement for sure. I mean, I'm a big advocate for calisthenics in general, but if we just look at the Louis push-up with that grasp of the bar, with that kind of hollowed body position where you're either neutral to slightly flexed in the lumbar spine with a tensioned core, that'd be really good. That way we're not doing it with rib flare, but with a more neutral rib and hip position. Beneficial all across the board. I'd actually wager if you did that with a soft knee, so it's almost like a quadruped or bear crawl position, you'd get even more abdominal activation. Start working your lower TVA as well, so that'd be good for just building that show muscle, as well as doing a push-up in such a way that the torso positioning would be beneficial to your squat positioning. You could also make the argument at that point that you're going to get some serratus recruitment, which would be really good for shoulder stab as well. So yeah, that's my objectively correct opinion on the Louis push-up, the benefits, and how I might go about programming it. Either use it as a warm-up or a partial ladder for a great burnout exercise. And I might just go ahead and throw that into one of my clients' workouts this week ahead. He's a guy where every day there's some sort of finisher for him because he just really likes them. And he's still losing weight, he's still getting stronger, he's having fun, and he likes to just kind of get smacked around at the end of his sessions for 10 minutes or so, like 1 foot in the grave kind of stuff. And it's not impeding his progress long term, and it's not like he really needs to have maximally optimal strength progression since he's just a dude who doesn't want to die young, in his own words. So yeah, we might throw those in because he does, who doesn't want bigger pecs, right? Big pecs, right checks, they say. So that'd be a very fun one to program in for him. Trying to think what else you could do with those guys. Yeah, those are just going to be kind of the 2 main suggestions I have for it. Anything else, gentlemen? All right, Chris. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining. I'll send you an email a little later, too. We'll talk shop about that boot camp call. Logan, anything from you, my friend? All right, let's hear it. Take care, Chris. Okay, so honestly, I think wide grip lat pull downs, you're just not going to feel the lats as much. I know anytime I do them, I do not feel my lats as much. And if you read a lot of the new literature, I hate doing this to myself, but a lot of the more sciencey guys, they'll also kind of agree that in general, it's going to be a narrower neutral or even, what's the word? Supinated grip is going to be slightly more lat, whereas when you get more out here, it's going to be less lat. But if you want to increase the engagement overall, what I'd suggest doing is actually do a single arm and palpate it a little bit. Just kind of push into it a little more and think about emphasizing the pinky and ring finger with the pull. And that should help increase lat recruitment overall. But I do think with the wide grip, you're going to be somewhat inhibited in the sensation of lat engagement just due to the elbow path. And as you do come down, think about converging your elbows. Like hammer strength machines, they have that converging action when they do the pull down, which if we look at one of the functions of the lat, that makes sense that it would bring the elbow down and in, right? Yeah, if we're talking about maximizing sensation, something you could also do is before your set of wide grip lat pull downs, do some pre-fatigue with a band. Just do some standing straight arm band pull downs, or I guess you could also call them standing band pull overs. That kind of diagonal chop with the band there. That'll also help with the mind-muscle connection to get the lats to feel a little bit better. And then one final one, it's actually from John Meadows. He would do this one. It's a little activation drill. I'm just going to wait for the camera to catch up before I try and demo this one. So what you do is you put your arm about here, right? Then you're going to come down and in until your arm is across the body. Then you rotate out and then just drive your elbow into your side as hard as you can and hold that for 10 to 15 seconds. I've actually done that before and nearly given myself a lat cramp. So that's something you could also try out as part of your warm-up series. Maybe do a few band pullovers, then do that drill 2 times, and then move into your wide grip lat pull downs. That should really help with the sensation and the mind-muscle connection. All right. Any more? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, not sure if he's still here or not, but unless there's any other questions, looks like there's a couple more of you who might have joined. I don't know who it is. You didn't say hi. You got to say hi next time. I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping this stream up. Hey, Logan, thanks for joining me on the stream. And for those of you who were just observing, appreciate you being here. Say hi, though, next time. Let's have a great day, all right, folks? Anyways, I will catch you next week and the live stream. As far as what I'm talking about, who knows? We'll find out when we get there. Hope y'all have a good one. Bye for now.